Hey everyone, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with the first video in our How to Play series for the Japanese Battleship line. This is going to be the Captain Skills video, and this is patch 0.6.4.1. And we will dive into my Yamato Captain. Yes, he only has 10 points, so bear with me here. Just how this is going to work out. I've got 4 builds that I'm going to talk about. These builds are by absolutely no means the only way to build your captain for Japanese battleships. So under no circumstances should you think that these are the only options that you have. There are certainly other ways to put together your captain. These are just some ideas that I'm throwing out there to see what, see if it helps you guys any, at least get an idea of some directions that you could possibly go. The first build that we will talk about is going to be an anti-aircraft build, and yes, I know that there's somebody out there going, well, why would I want to do that? The reality of the situation is that the vast majority of the anti-aircraft, it seems like for the Japanese, is concentrated in 25mm guns, so not really a whole lot to gain there in a full anti-aircraft build given how poor the Japanese anti-aircraft is. But if you're one of those people who just absolutely hates any airplanes coming around you at all, this would certainly be the build for you. Now, it's going to start off with Preventative Maintenance. And the reason why I'm taking Preventative Maintenance for this build is simple. It allows me to run Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1, which, as you can see there, doubles the hit points of our secondaries. And the reason why it allows us to do that is because we no longer need Main Armaments Mod 1 to keep our primary battery from getting incapacitated. Preventative Maintenance is taking that over. That allows us to switch to Auxiliary Arms Mod 1 to increase the AA mount survivability by 100%. From there, I would definitely recommend taking Expert Marksman. This would be a good offensive combat skill. The Japanese battleships are not well known for having fast turret traverse, and this just helps just a little bit more. Of course, honorable mention, if you really want it, you can either take High Alert or Jack of All Trades for a little bit more survivability focus on that. From there, basic firing training. It's basically, no pun intended, going to be a requirement for any anti-aircraft build. And the reason for that is because it does add 20% to the average damage of your anti-aircraft batteries. And needless to say, that's quite important when it comes time to shoot down enemy aircraft. From there, it would go to advanced firing training, which is going to increase the anti-aircraft range by 20%. And that is all anti-aircraft range. That is not just guns up to... Yes, that's not capped out at 139mm. If you have anything higher caliber than 139, it does work for anti-aircraft purposes. It does push that range out. From there, of course, we go to manual fire control for anti-aircraft, and this is going to take any AA gun over 85mm, which for the Japanese includes a lot of 5-inch gun mounts. It's going to double the DPS that they do. Now, I've got my Yamato up here. He's not AA build, but the 5-inch gun mounts that they have are 61 damage apiece, so you can imagine that's 122 damage for each one for a total of 244 damage in total just by using manual fire control for AA. That is including, that's not including the basic firing training there. So that doubling of your long-range DPS really helps shoot down aircraft, because that long-range DPS is really where anti-aircraft hovers, strong anti-aircraft hovers in until they get into that medium range. From there, I recommend taking Superintendent. This is going to increase the number of fighters that you have available to you, which is also part of that anti-aircraft build. But more importantly, you do get an additional heal, which is nice. And then from there, Adrenaline Rush. And this is going to be an absolute boon to your primary armaments, but also your secondary armaments, and it supposed to work on your anti-aircraft as well. So all of those things kind of add up to create a very strong anti-aircraft build. This next build that we're going to talk about is going to be a survivability build. And from there, I am once again going to take preventative maintenance, which is going to reduce the chance of our main battery, our rudder, our engine from being incapacitated by 30%, which just helps out that much more in surviving. From there, I would recommend taking either High Alert or Jack of All Trades. High Alert is going to reduce the damage control party consumable reload by 10%. Jack of All Trades is all consumables by 5%. Of the two, I think High Alert is slightly more useful out of the box. From there, Superintendent for the obvious additional heal. From there, Fire Prevention, which is going to take your number of fire spots on a ship, which is normally 4, and it's going to reduce it down to 3. That reduction, the one that it's getting rid of, is one of the middle ones, and it's moving and combining the 2 middle ones, which is very handy. It also reduces the chance of the ship getting set on fire by 10%. From there, I recommend going to advanced firing training, which is going to increase your anti-aircraft range. And the reason why that is important is because anti-aircraft batteries are actually a very significant part of your own survivability anytime there are carriers in the game. From there, basic firing training is certainly an option, or basics of survivability. Either of those two are going to be solid choices. Basics of survivability is going to reduce the time to repair, time to extinguish a fire, and time to recover from flooding by 15%. And then from there, of course, Adrenaline Rush. That is going to be an offensive combat skill. From here, the next build that we will talk about is going to be a secondary build. And secondary builds, they actually, at the higher tiers, actually have a lot of use, although, I've heard some pretty decent things about using them from basically tier 6 onward. That it appears that the secondaries, while not quite as strong as the Germans, they are still quite strong and useful. So you can definitely do a secondary build. Certainly on Izumo and Yamato, you can definitely get some pretty healthy secondary action going on, and that could really help put your DPS way up there. So anyway, on to this. It's going to start off with preventative maintenance, and it's the exact same reasons why we started off with preventative maintenance in the anti-aircraft build. Again, that allows us to run Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1, which is going to increase the secondary battery survivability by 100%. That is extremely important when your secondaries get taken out all the time. From there, Expert Marksman. This is going to be, again, an offensive combat skill. And then basic firing training for the reduction in reload time of your secondary battery. And then from there, advanced firing training for the increase in range of your secondary battery by 20%. From there, manual fire control for secondaries to decrease the accuracy of it, or increase the accuracy of it. Kind of odd wording. Decrease the dispersion, increase the accuracy. So the shells have a much smaller area that they land in. And then from there, I'm going to recommend Superintendent as kind of a survivability pick. This allows you to have that additional heal, which, definitely helps. And then, of course, from there, Adrenaline Rush, which is going to help reduce the reload of those secondaries as you start to die. Now, the build that I have a tendency to run, we can call it a hybrid build or what have you. Obviously, I'm not done with my Yamato Captain at all, so I don't have all these selected, but I am going to run Preventative Maintenance, Expert Marksman, Basic Firing Training, Fire Prevention, Advanced Firing Training, Superintendent, and Adrenaline Rush. And that definitely, that's actually quite similar, and actually is almost entirely the survivability build, with the exception of Expert Marksman being thrown in there instead of High Alert. So that's definitely one build. Concealment builds for Japanese battleships, You can get a battleship to be reasonably stealthy. I want to say that if we lop off another 14% off of the Yamato, it ends up being like right around 13.5-ish kilometers. That's pretty respectable. My only thing with this is that it's not really the Japanese forte. It doesn't really help them out nearly as much as it helps out the US battleships. You could certainly run a true concealment build if you wanted. You would have to give up another tier 4 skill. And in the case of the Japanese battleships, everybody seems to want to shoot at them because they're, quote, soft and squishy. And it just seems like they get set on fire a lot. So for me, I think fire prevention is the way to go. You could make a pretty solid case for concealment expert. Anyway, those are 4 ideas, just throwing them out there for you guys to kind of ponder around in your head. Think about. By no means the only builds that you can do. One of the best parts of the 0.6.0 Captain Skills patch was the fact that there are so many viable builds. I'm sure somebody's going to mention down in the comment section Direction Center for Catapult Aircraft for an anti-aircraft build. Yeah, I mean, you can make it work. I certainly think you can. You're going to have to give up other things in order to get it. I know some people are going to be talking about incoming fire alert or priority target. And as I've explained in other times, for me, these two things, I just assume that if I'm detected, that I'm being shot at, and I need to be cognizant of where I am angled to, what I am angled to, and where incoming shells are coming from. And that saves me the points. I don't have to, burn those points there. Vigilance, I'm sure, will also get mentioned as not being, in this one. And as I've said before, if you've played the game enough and you're aware enough of your surroundings, you've played destroyers a lot, you generally can get away without vigilance because you have a pretty solid idea of where enemy torpedoes are going to come from. Now, there are times you get caught off guard, and those are times that you definitely, congratulate the destroyer captain on a good salvo and move on with life. But for the most part, I personally don't find vigilance to be that useful. That's really about the most extensive ones. I've heard some people that will recommend IFHE to help with the secondaries penetrating through bow and stern armor on stuff. I'm not sure that necessarily works out as well on Japanese battleships as it does on the German battleships. The German battleships definitely get a much better advantage for it. Personally, not that useful for me, and I'm sure Demolition Expert will also get mentioned because it does increase the chance of your secondary starting fires by 2%. If you're in a secondary build, you could play around with that. But anyway, those are just some ideas. Let me know down in the comments what build you guys are running. Does it look like any of the builds that I've listed, or is it completely different? Let me know down in the comments. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.